Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 2 of the Nancy Drew Game ranking series covering the suspects of every Nancy Drew game. I'm your host, Jameson.
And I'm Julian.
And we're glad today to have Hugh Miller from Nancy Drew Walkthroughs joining us again to put our bias in check.
I'll do my best to help you with that.
Okay, so
behind the scenes, Hugh worked really hard with us to establish this list, and I think we reached a really nice common area, and I, for one, love this list. I think it's really accurate.
So, as a bit of a forward, I'd like to say that we decided to have Hugh on, and maybe some more guests in the future, because a lot of people brought up that in the first episode, sometimes Julian and I work together like a hive mind, and our biases really show, and no one's there to check them. We have some opinions that Hugh does not share, and we have opinions that, you know, he would fight us on. So this list is supposed to be a more balanced and, I guess, egalitarian ranking of every game for suspects. This is the second episode of a 7-part series where we are trying to rank every single Nancy Drew game from the worst game in the series per category to the very best. Our last video was on the mystery and story of each game, and this one is ranked entirely on the suspects and characters. For this video, suspects for each game will be ranked on 3 key aspects: whether or not they have a particular presence to the game and add something to the overall dynamic and how they mingle with other characters; do they have a significant character arc that changes the impression you had of them at the beginning of the game and overwhelmingly evolves their character; and 3, would we invite them to a barbecue?
Oh yeah, the barbecue factor is very important. Starting off with the number 1 worst case for suspects, or should I say suspect. If anyone did not see this case coming in at number 33, well then, I don't know what you were thinking, but we have Ransom of the 7 Ships, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, who should we even, give a reason, or can we just move on to 32?
I mean, it's all about one suspect, no matter how many little twists and turns he had in his character, if you want to call it a character arc, it's not enough to carry a game.
Okay, so we're gonna delve into spoilers really briefly. I don't want to name the final form of this suspect, but the character in this game, the only character, Nancy, is marooned on an island with Bess and George. Only Bess has been kidnapped, and George and Nancy are left trying to solve a treasure hunt to try to find her. And there is one man on the island who is posing as a Jamaican beach bum, and then he poses as an Australian man. And then finally, in the ending of the game, there is a pretty crazy reveal where the character pulls off a fake nose and his wig and everything, and reveals that he is actually a past culprit from a bygone Nancy Drew era. And, you know, as cool as the reveal would be, for the longest time there's no mystery, because there's nothing, it's hard. This is a terrible one to start with, because there's nothing we can say.
Well, Her Interactive, they have that great game formula, right, of a great mystery for suspects typically, and oftentimes when they break that formula, the game is just not as successful. This is the prime example of a time where it was a not successful Nancy Drew game.
Absolutely.
Hugh, what do you have to roast Mr.
Johnny Roll.
Yeah, Mr. Johnny Roll.
Johnny Roll is, he's, for the most part, a pretty useless character, considering he's the only character in the game. That's... I honestly don't know what else to say. I mean, I wouldn't count the parrot as a character because it's a bird, right? And then Bess is gone for 99% of the game, and then George is there, but she's trying to fix a phone.
Right.
I don't know what else to say, but it's the worst. It's awful.
It's really...
That's all you can say.
If you like Nancy Drew games for the characters, you can just pretend this game doesn't exist, because...
With that, guys, we are moving on to case 32 on our list.
Okay, finally some substance.
Yeah, we're going with Shattered Medallion here. It's a bit of an upgrade, but not by much. Yeah, I can't even, aside from Sunny, choose a favorite character in the game.
The characters in this game, one by one, is Sunny June, the charismatic and purple-haired menace who has been terrorizing the franchise from behind the scenes since Game 6. He was an intern at Beach Hill, and then he was, working in Manette's House of Design. And from there on, you just ended up encountering him all over the place. He was really just an inside joke for a while, until they finally decided to make him into an in-the-flesh character. And apart from him, he is running a game show, which Nancy is a contestant on, as well as 10 people, but you only ever meet 4 of them. They just conveniently hide the rest of them off screen.
Yep.
And among these is a professional reality TV star named Kiri. She's just a really egomaniac New Zealander who's not so much fun to talk to. There is a very dysfunctional couple of Patrick and Lena. Lena is a professional code breaker, which is the off-brand Nancy Drew career, I guess. And then you have Patrick, her boyfriend, who I believe can most definitely be called the most dumb and oafish character in the franchise. He's not even like a Gunnar from Sea of Darkness, kind of. You know, just big and burly. He's literally just a rock.
Yeah.
Nobody likes him.
Well, see, the only reason I do like Patrick is because of his zebra joke that he says. I forget how it goes, but every time I hear it always puts a smile on my face.
I remember that joke, yeah. He's got some funny one-liners, and I think that's because he's so naturally awkward.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actual suspects and a game and a mystery, none of the suspects fueled this game at all. It was it really fell short.
These two games are just absolutely lifeless without a single character that we like. I think moving forward, at least each game has one character that we can gush about.
I think so,
There's typically one redeemable character in every game moving on. With 31 on the list, we have Secret of the Scarlet Hand. And it's another one of those games that's pretty bland. There's one or two shining moments. I, for one, really like Henrik Vanderheuen. I feel like the community does as well. And Taylor Sinclair has his shining moments as well.
It's totally got some problems with its characters. You've got Joanna Riggs. She is incredibly dull. There's nothing about her that's like fascinating or interesting. Sometimes she'll say things in Latin.
Semper ubi sub ubi.
Yep, but that's about it.
And then Alejandro Del Rio is just
He's a walking textbook, man.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good example of him.
I mean, I kind of liked Alejandro Del Rio's story that he brought to the game about. He really voiced the whole subplot between the Providence documents being forged and art being stolen from Mexico and other places of its natural origin. And really, I feel like this might be the first instance on the list of two characters that had a real remarkable off-screen presence, and that is Taylor Sinclair and Alejandro Del Rio. So Taylor Sinclair is the shady, colorful, rule-bending art dealer that somehow is able to snag all these illustrious pieces for the museum for reasons that are likely illegal, but everyone just turns a blind eye to them.
How about that rubber shark?
And his office is just full of old art antiquities that he's like trying to fence in the meantime. I think possibly one of the funniest lines in this whole generation is when Nancy brings up that Alejandro accuses him of being a modern-day conquistador and stealing all sorts of art from Mexico and just selling it to the highest bidder and forging Providence documents. And Taylor Sinclair responds to this by saying, "Perhaps someday I will share with you the very sad story called How Mexico Lost Its Sense of Humor."
Such a classic line.
One of the best lines in the whole series.
He's just such an unapologetic jerk. And I feel like that kind of adds charm to him at the end of the day.
But where does the game come short to you guys? For me, it's some characters served almost nothing to the plot.
I think part of it is even just the voice actors for the characters. I think just the way that they were cast. Like I think here's the problem though. I think the voices fit the look of the character, but that's a downside because I don't like talking to them because of that, you know?
I can totally get behind that, yeah. If you want to know one thing from me, and this is a brief tie-in to atmosphere, but one of the reasons that I really didn't like half the suspects in this game, especially Taylor Sinclair and Alejandro, their locations is a single room with like 3 things to look at, and that is all that there is that location. This game was probably the single worst game for transportation and navigation.
It's always just... I've been so annoyed with those locations, always.
Oh, we didn't even mention why Henrik is cool.
Yeah, because it's the first time I think a character shifts like locations and where they are in a game. He undergoes a concussion and he's in the hospital for the second half of the game, which was probably my favorite thing that undergoes a suspect in the game. It's him regaining his memory and trying to fuel what he knows and how he might be tied to the stealing of the Pikal.
It's a really great sequence of events.
Yeah, it is, but that in and of itself is the most exciting thing that happens in the game too. And
it can't be ignored that even once you do hit this point with him, there are a lot of brick walls in his dialogue trees where he just goes, "You're asking the wrong amnesiac," and then just dismisses
I can't remember.
That face, he is as familiar as my own feet. Alright, moving on to number 30 now. This was the first pick on the list that I think is really going to surprise some people, and that is The Phantom of Venice.
It kind of goes along with the previous mentions because a lot of characters were so bland, but then again, there is always one shining gem out of the game, and for me, it's probably Colin Baxter, but he also goes by another name. He's got a really interesting story.
I mean, I don't know what you're on about. Enrico Taza, all the way, for the 2 conversations you get to have with him.
Well, yeah, he's great, but I just wish he had more of a spotlight.
Hugh, I remember you voicing that you consider Antonio Fongo to be a valid suspect for this game. Do you want to go into that?
I think he's an interesting character because he's one that exists physically, and we never interact with him, but we just have to observe him and then report to our boss. But he never really does anything. He's a very interesting character in that sense, and I've always been curious why he was included in the game. But
it definitely feels like they could have done more with him. Especially if we got to have at least one conversation with the guy, that'd be really cool.
That would have been awesome.
I do love the whole underworld with all the masked people and the criminal mafia stuff going on in Venice. But at the end of the day, the actual people that you're left to talk to face, like Margarita Faubourg and
Helena Berg,
God.
They were not fun to talk to in the slightest. I didn't think that, especially Margarita's character, she's one of my least favorite suspects ever.
Yeah,
she's like Lucille Bluth from Arrested Development.
She just doesn't do anything. She just lays there and suntans, and that's the only time you ever see her. At some point in the game, Nancy decides that she's at the lowest point in her life, so she goes dumpster diving, and she finds out that Colin's real name is Justin. How amazing is that?
Well, and that he's being blackmailed by Margarita to work for almost little to no pay at the villa, right?
Something like that.
It's not a villa. What's its name?
The Casa Nocosta.
Casa Nocosta. Conoscosta. Oh my gosh. So there's a little bit of a feud going on there between Colin/Justin and Margarita, but we never see any on-screen developments play out. I think Nancy eavesdrops on a conversation once and then it gets swept under the rug because Colin quite literally disappears for the end game, and I would have really liked it if he stuck around more.
Otherwise, Helena Berg, her whole purpose is literally that she's just like a foreign exchange student or something. She's just studying abroad and staying in the Conoscosta.
There's a ton of really passive-aggressive remarks towards Nancy's outfits, especially by Helena and Margarita, but on the other hand, Colin/Justin is really flirty with Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
Him and I actually liked almost all the conversations I had with Colin. He asks about Ned's necklace that Nancy's wearing, and then he gets really upset to hear that Nancy does have a boyfriend back home. And I really thought that could be a potential motive if he was a culprit. That would have been a really interesting route they'd take, but instead he just disappears.
That's why I think Colin's character is really well done, because unlike Daryl Gray in Secrets Can Kill, I think Colin Baxter, he genuinely cares about his work and about Nancy.
Colin's a gem in the game. Everyone else, besides Enrico Taza, for what limited amount of time he is in the game, comes up short.
I don't think you've actually introduced a game yet. You want to take 29?
Yeah, 29. We are actually not out of the 30s yet. We're still in the 30s. It's Secret of the Old Clock, taking place in 1930.
Wait.
No.
The year 1930. The place, the road to Titusville, where we find Nancy Drew behind this,
Are you kidding?
Jamie's so stupid.
I didn't realize
your joke was too advanced for Jamie.
Oh, sorry, man. Sorry.
No, it was perfect. Just do it again.
No, don't do it again.
You have to.
We're rolling with that.
Yeah, I think we gotta keep that reaction was absolutely golden. Yeah, so Secret of the Old Clock. It's another. I think I consider it to be a fan favorite. It's one of my favorites, but the characters are not a shining point of the game by any means.
Not at all.
No.
So for me,
well, there's 4 characters. We've got Jane. I don't know what her last name is. Emily. I don't know what her last name is either. Jim Archer and Richard Topham.
I think it's Emily Crandall.
That's the one.
Jane
Willoughby.
Quotation mark Willoughby.
almost everybody is extremely boring in the game. There's even characters reserved for the whole idea is this is the boring character, i.e. Richard Topham. And what gets me about this game, and it's one of the things that I don't like about playing through a game, is when a suspect is so obviously not behind. I just like fair suspicion being spread around like evenly. So for me, Emily Crandall was so obviously like not somebody who could steal her own jewelry, you know. And then especially with
Jim Archer.
Jim Archer, man. He was so obsolete. He didn't even need to be in the game for most of it.
Really, at the end of the day, this game has almost no clues as to who the actual culprit is gonna be.
Exactly. I feel like the ending was pulled out of thin air.
This is hardly even a mystery game when it comes down to it. It's more of just like a scavenger hunt. It's just a bunch of bland characters to me. All of them are kind of forgettable. Even the best of the bunch, Richard Topham, can't save the game. Alright, coming in at number 28, we have one of the more intentionally generic games in the franchise, and I feel like that kind of added to its charm. Message in a Haunted Mansion.
Again, this is another game that I think fans are going to get annoyed at, that we're having this so low on the list, but again, for me, the game's characters are nostalgic, but they're not overly deep or
No,
excitable.
none are deep. Rose Green is just that annoying character who can't do anything for herself and running around doing all her chores, and she's a bobblehead. I'm convinced she's not a real human, but that's beside the point. Louis Chandelier is maybe rivaling Jim Archer for the most boring suspect of all time. Abby was pretty cool. She may be my favorite character of the game, and then Charlie was pretty cool too, though he gets nothing wrapped up when it comes to his story. Overall, it was just nothing outstanding, no real interesting motivations, characters didn't work well with each other. Anything you want to add, Jamie?
Really, I think that when it comes down to it in this game, everyone is just a very one-sided character. Like, even when you find out plot developments with Charlie, like that he's secretly living in the basement and is homeless, it doesn't change his character, it doesn't change his demeanor. I know we didn't touch on this in the mystery part so much, but I love that everybody just goes to the winter festival when it's convenient at the end of the game. Really, this game had weak writing, not just in the story, but a lot of the times in the dialogue. For sure, if you're a fan of the franchise and you especially love the old cheese of the nostalgic games, you will definitely enjoy this one. There's not so much for us to say about the suspects in it, but just that everyone just has generally cheesy and just corny dialogue, not like old clock corny where it's intentional. It just seems lazy to an extent that's entertaining.
I think it's just important. I think it's important for viewers just to keep in mind that we're not ranking these games. We're not saying that this is a bad game because the characters are bad. Like I love the game, and
we do too.
The characters they just don't shine.
No, they don't. Coming in at number 27 on our list, we have The Hauntings of Castle Malloy, another game where I know it's getting repetitive, but nobody truly shined here.
This game is weird because I can't figure out if it has 3 suspects or 5.
Well, yeah, I'm forgetting his name. Who was Kit's friend who never showed up in the game that totally should have been in the game?
Oh, Alan Payne.
Yep, Alan Payne. That was my biggest gripe with the game, is that he was never an on-screen character.
I agree.
Just a really briefly quick up. This game is like a missing person game. It's the groom at a wedding who's gone missing 24 hours before the wedding, and Nancy's the maid of honor, and so she's trying to figure out where he is. And the only characters that can really be considered as suspects, I mean, unless they pull off the surprise it was Alan Payne the whole time, even though he's just a phone contact, pull off the classic Mitch Dillon. Basically, it's just the best man, Kit Foley, who is supposed to be Irish but has an American voice because they didn't want to hire an Irish voice actor. Then you've got Kyler Malloy, or Kyler Mallory, and she just found out that she's Malloy. And then you have Denal, the grumpy old caretaker. I might call him my favorite, but it feels like he's just a less impressive version of Dexter Egan.
He didn't feel like a suspect to me. His only motivation was that he didn't like
Matt.
Yeah.
And also that he was completely ranting and raving about fairies and leprechauns, so...
Yeah, but he's nobody that somebody could seriously you wouldn't seriously consider him as kidnapping Matt.
Yeah, and I think that's where a big problem comes in fundamentally and why this game is ranked so low. We're ranking this on suspects, people that are to be considered for the crime, and in the end game, there are 2 fully rendered characters that come into the mix. Once the mystery is solved and you know what happens to Matt. And they can't be counted as suspects, though, because the mystery's over by then. But,
right.
Matt himself is an interesting bloke to talk to. I think that he's funny, even though he's muffled talking to him through a door. But at the end of the day, the other character, I don't even want to give away who it is, because, I mean, to be fair, she doesn't even have any dialogue, but it's a nice twist. It's the best thing the game has to offer, the secret identity of this character.
Oh, yeah.
with that, we're gonna move on to case 26
This is
on
where,
our suspects list.
Yeah. This is.
It's a game that we hold dear in our hearts, but we have to be true with ourselves. Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake.
Now, like, we love this game. This was Julian and I's first game that we ever beat. It's gonna be one of my all-time favorites forever, just for the nostalgia. But you gotta acknowledge, this game only has 3 suspects. And Tucker Davis does not count.
No.
That's the first thing that stuck out to me, was 3 suspects. And the reason I think they did that is they were trying to add to the exclusivity of Moon Lake and how it's not many people that's here. That's kind of what Red Knot's character goes with too, is he enjoys being more introverted, you know, him and his bird watching. So I think that's why there's only 3, is to maybe have the player feel a sense of aloneness.
And save on animation, of course.
It could have been that.
But it worked for those
That doesn't
reasons,
make sense, though. The previous games have all had 4 plus, actually.
Yeah.
So Moon Lake's kind of an outlier in that regard. And then on
They
top
kind
of
of
that...
had to put resources toward the Ghost Dogs, though.
That could be it. That's a fair point.
Do the Ghost Dogs count as characters now? Okay, so... If we're gonna just give it a real quick rundown, there's the bird watcher, the park ranger, and the general store owner. The park ranger and the bird watcher are vastly superior to the general store owner because they aren't super annoying. In fact, if anything, you annoy them.
Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, I think Ranger Acres is pretty annoying.
Well, I mean, no. We totally annoy him because, you know, his whole thing is, oh, I'm a public servant and I'm here to serve. I'm here for the people.
I'm here to give you half-hour Roman numeral puzzles.
Yeah, and he's just a really very stingy guy. He likes bossing and ordering people around, and he hates working at Moon Lake because there's literally nobody here but the bird watcher, Sally McDonald.
Okay, at the same time, I think his character has the most depth.
Yes, because he's the only one who actually has a character arc. That should be noted too.
Yeah, Hugh, you want to talk about that some?
Yeah, at some point in the game, we discover a bit of Jeff's past, I guess, with the lake and with Mickey Malone. A past which Jeff is not too keen on talking about until we finally, pry it out of him. But essentially, again, spoiler alert, his dad was in cahoots with Mickey Malone, and it's not something that Jeff was overly proud of. Sorry, his grandfather, not his father. Yeah. But yeah, essentially, he just has a past with the Malone house that he doesn't. He's not proud of at all.
And if you want to compare, I mean, that's interesting to me that they gave him a story like that with almost as emotion, compared to Red Knot, who has one line of dialogue in the whole game about how, oh no, I had this dog named Ruth who loved watching birds with me, and I miss her every day. And that's the most you get out of him.
So, one thing I would say that would make Suspects a better part of this game is there's a lot of separate conversations between Emily and Red Knot and Ranger Acres, for that matter, where everybody has these off-screen encounters. I know Emily says that Ranger Acres gets on her for trying to drag Moon Lake, or he's always suspicious of her, and Red Knot says from time and time again he's always up at M's Emporium doing his shopping. I would have loved to see some, even low-quality cutscenes of just characters in this very small, recluse, whatever you want to call it, town, I guess, interacting with one another, because I feel like that would have added a lot more strings attached to characters and how they work with each other, etc., instead of just, writing it off in a sentence.
Red Knot does get 2 little cutscenes, but no one else is around.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, Ghost Dogs, it's a game I hold near and dear, but it's not that good for Suspects.
Case number 25 is one that I'm sure people would probably put a bit lower on the list, but we've got a bit higher, is The Creature of Kapu Cave. And this is an interesting game in a lot of sense, and the characters are especially interesting. They've got a very, did you say diverse cast?
Yes, that's a good point. This could be one of the most diverse casts.
Because we've got a family-run business, a father-daughter business, and they're sort of just there. Or the Hardys are supposed to investigate them, but we don't really deal with them. And then there's Dr. Craven, who actually has the coolest job. And then there's Dr. Quigley, who can't hold a sentence at all.
I hate Quigley Kim, and Hugh is very outspoken that he loves her. So Hugh, go ahead and make your case. Why is this
Dr. Quigley Kim? She's I've known people like her in my life, where I enjoy talking to them and just sort of like shake my head and smile, and then I don't want to talk to them for a bit, and I come back and I'm like, all right, here we go again. But again, she doesn't offer too much, but she's just wacky enough that I think she's just perfect for the game. And I think considering the game is not a big favorite on a lot of people's lists, it's kind of fitting that she would just happen to put the nail in the coffin there. But I do think that she is an interesting character, and her stories she delves into are just fascinating. Whether or not they're true, I don't know. But yeah, again, she doesn't do anything for the game, especially when it comes to the Frass puzzle. But I don't hate her. I quite enjoy talking to her.
Quigley's big problem that just really annoys me is that how she always cuts off Nancy and then continues to digress, and it just creates a hostile environment between the two, because like through all the trouble you go to get to actually finding her for the first time in the game, she comes down from her tree, barks some orders at Nancy, digresses, and then goes right back up, and we don't even get to tell her that someone trashed her camp.
I know, I love it.
I mean, it's just difference in taste, I guess. But regardless, I think we're all just in agreement that Malachi Craven is a beast. He's best suspect.
Oh, yeah.
The hothead. Yeah, I really like him. He has the most interesting talking points, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I also like his backstory. I think the whole bit where we see that one little glimpse of emotion about his niece, I think.
Yes, yes.
I thought that was just a nice little glimpse into his character, and then it just makes him so much more relatable.
Very true.
I think that there is a pattern you'll see in what makes a fun and entertaining suspect. The ones that are always just rude and belligerent, those are the most fun to talk to. Because they always add some sort of drama to the scene.
And then the father-daughter duo here, I don't like him, but I'm failing to come up with reasons why I don't like him.
Okay, I like Big Island Mike. I think he's cool. I think he's funny.
Hawaiian Mr. Krabs?
Yes, Hawaiian Mr. Krabs. And
Crabs out of water.
I prefer him to Pua Mapu, because Pua is just kind of stale. If I'm going to be honest, Pua is actually kind of one of the better teenager or young suspects in the franchise. Really, I think the reason why I like both of them is just because when you talk to them, you play as Frank and Joe, and whenever you get to play as those two, it just adds an extra spice to any part of any game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's rare. Moving on to case number 24, I am honestly astonished that we agreed that it belonged as high up on the list as it does. We have game number 1, Secrets Can Kill, and in this we are counting Secrets Can Kill Remastered 2 with Detective Beach.
It's not the worst suspect game, okay? I really liked how every suspect shares the same theme of being backstabbed by Jake Rogers. It's definitely not what I was expecting the first time I loaded up the game, and learning more and prying about each character, it was my favorite part of the game, honestly.
You know what? Sure. I'll call Suspects the best part about this game. We're just going to count it as the remaster, I guess, because every character more or less stays the same from the original to the sequel, besides Detective Beach gets added. So Detective Beach, I thought, was kind of a cool character. He calls you onto the game, he calls you into the case, and he says, oh, I'll pose as your Uncle Steve, and I'll be your secret contact, and I'll just sit here at Maxine's Diner all day and refill my coffee mug, and you go out and talk to these students, because there's no way that they're going to talk to an old creep like me.
In regards to my favorite character, or my favorite student, in the remastered version, it is Hulk Sanchez, because I think the voice actor was perfect.
Oh yeah.
However, in the original, I think Daryl Gray.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm with you there on Hulk. Him and Hal Tanaka actually are my two favorites.
I like that they get along, because it's in this school, it's not that like the jock bullies the nerd, but like the nerd looks up to the jock, and the jock is like, damn, that guy's so smart. and then everyone just communally hates Jake Rogers and then talks ill of him once he's dead. As far as character archetypes go, you've got the jock and nerd, and Hulk Sanchez and Hal Tanaka. Then you've got Connie Watson, who is student body president, and she's kind of just like really wrapped up in the whole high school lifestyle. And then you got Daryl Gray, the almost like the playboy. He's always flirting, and he's got like a wealthy family apparently, and he might be a drug dealer on the level. I don't know, you tell me. But yeah, he's got a nice fancy sports car, and he flips burgers at a Maxine's Diner.
What does he say that exits conversations? Like, I got a hot grill to get back to.
Okay, so this one also really, really hurts because, God, I think I would personally say I like this game even more than Ghost Dogs, at least for some reasons. But still, can't look past it. It's, man, Suspects is not its best attribute. Number 23, we have The Curse of Blackmoor Manor.
You said it best. Suspects is probably the worst part of this game, in my opinion.
But it does everything else so good. So, this game featured the first child suspect, Jane Penvlin. She's like 11 years old or something. Then you've got her stepmother, Linda Petrov. She's kind of going through a midlife crisis of a sorts right now, and she doesn't let anybody see her. She's always behind a curtain in her bedroom all day, and that adds
Some would
to her
say it's a
mystique.
transformation.
Oh, yeah. Well, something... Yeah, you know, she's got quite the character transformation.
Oh, alright.
Otherwise, you've got Nigel Mukherjee, the scholarly young scribe who is researching the Penvlin family history out of the library and is trying to actually write the first biography of the Penvlin family lore, and nobody really knows much about this old family that's pretty much as old as England itself. And then you've got old Mrs. Letitia Drake, the great aunt of Blackmoor Manor, who's always teetering around down in the old observatory, experimenting with old carnivorous plants and that sort of thing.
Well, it's funny that you forget Ethel Bosny.
Ah, yes, that's... you got me. You got me red-handed, okay. So, this game also has Jane's tutor, Ethel Bosny, who makes multiple on-screen appearances. Some of them are optional, and at a time or two, you can even have a little dialogue tree with her. Maybe it's just like one or two choices in the whole game where you can choose what to say to her. But really, she is a character, and she also counts as a suspect, but she only ever shows up in random encounters almost. Like, you never can just go to her and find her.
No,
So
exactly.
what's the problem with the suspects here? In my opinion, I think Hugh had a little bit of a differing opinion. Nigel Mukherjee was very dull. He did not offer much, and he takes off 2/3 of the way through the game, doesn't come back anymore.
I like Nigel, though. I do, even if he's not very relevant.
Yeah, he's got some funny charms to him, but he did not fuel the case whatsoever.
He's so stingy.
And he has limited conversation topics too.
Yeah, kind
Like,
of.
he pretty much disappears right after you scare him.
What about getting to read and write his memoirs, though? His
That is the
memoirs
best
are
part of the game.
so
Yeah.
Hands
bad.
down.
Yeah.
Okay, that was pretty good.
I mean, how did it start out? When I was young?
Yeah.
Or when I was very, very young, I was very, very small or something like that.
Yeah. Mrs. Drake's character, not to dissect her much, but she was also kind of just annoying to me. She's in the observatory the entire time talking to her plants.
Mrs. Drake's whole gimmick is that she speaks Cockney, and it's like English Nadsat rhyming slang that's just really annoying to hear her go off about, and so does Johnny from the Boar's Head Pub. And really, it's almost like a puzzle in and of itself, trying to figure out what the hell they're saying at times.
Well, one reason that I do like Mrs. Drake is she, if you've seen the show Downton Abbey, she reminds me a lot of the character Mrs. Hughes. Just this firm and strict character, but who also has a very loving and caring side for the people that she works for.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
I also really like that Mrs. Drake has a very clever motive in the will, the 6 months habitation clause.
True.
I think that that's a very clever off-screen motive that she almost never brings up. Linda Petrov has married into the Penvlin family, and so she has to inhabit the manor for 6 months, or else 1/5 ownership passes to Letitia Drake or something like that. Unfortunately, she is never actually given a character model, besides one of her hands. She's very paranoid, thinks that she's going some sort of transformation throughout the whole game, and stays behind her bed canopy, and you never see her. But you do get to meet her new stepdaughter, Jane, who is very bubbly and fun with Nancy, but has a very strained relationship with her mother.
And is malnourished.
Okay, Jane, that's a valid critique, honestly. This is her and Tracta's first time rendering a child, and they kind of made her look malnourished. There's parts of Jane that she doesn't look very convincing if you told me this is a healthy 11-year-old girl.
Jane was probably my favorite suspect in the game. I thought they captured an 11-year-old girl decently well, especially one that has to undergo such rigorous studies. She's always wanting to play games, and she kind of looks up to Nancy as like a best friend figure almost. And the more you play the game, the more you learn about her, the more interesting she gets.
God, she would get along so well with Lucas from Captive Curse, honestly.
Alright guys, I think we've wrapped up Blackmoor Manor. Let's move on to case 22. We got the Haunted Carousel.
So the Haunted Carousel, this game I'd call it a 50-50 game. I really like Harlan and Elliot. I can't stand Ingrid or Joy, but I know that Hugh likes Joy more. Hugh, you wanna defend this game?
Yeah, no, I think, and I don't know if nostalgia plays into this at all, but I think Joy is actually a great character. I really, really, really think she's got a great character arc from the beginning of the game, where she's this, really quiet and very sort of insecure character, and we just see her evolve and sort of try and fight through her past, and then when the end game comes, she's really accepted the past and just sort of figured out why her father was the way that he was, and I think she's just a beautiful character with her story arc. But that's my opinion.
Okay, she does have a character arc. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ingrid was very bland. Harlan was an interesting character. I really wish we could have gotten to learn more about him, though.
Yeah,
I agree.
We should touch a bit more on Ingrid and why she's bland. She's like a new age, spiritual, almost vegan type, and tells Nancy that, oh no, I can sense that you have B3 issues. Please have a slab of whole grain wheat with peanut butter on it once a day.
Niacin.
Yeah, you're niacin.
The shining part of this game is Elliot Chen, though.
Elliot Chen. Yeah.
I love his whole thing with the riddles and how he kind of solves the case for us.
Yeah. So Elliot Chen, he's the park artist. He's very behind at his work because he's a procrastinator all the way down to the bone.
Well, I love the way you first meet him.
Yeah.
Knocking over his paint can.
He's got anger issues.
What a great
too.
intro.
Oh, it was amazing. Out now
and do not come back unless and until Joy Trent calls me. Oh, and we would be remiss to forget about Miles the Magnificent Memory Machine.
Of course.
I know he doesn't count as a suspect, but
how awesome would that be if he was the bad guy?
It'd be awesome. So basically, Joy's father was an inventor and managed to create a robot that was more charismatic than his own daughter. So, Miles the Magnificent Memory Machine is a modified easy-bake oven that's been given artificial intelligence and is programmed to give Joy riddles for her to unravel that will help her unlock just traumatized, hidden-away memories about her childhood. And Miles also has a bit of sass.
In my opinion, I had way more fun doing the side subplot of uncovering Joy's past than the main story of who stole the carousel horse.
But
me too.
Within that, I enjoyed talking to Miles much more than Joy. So
I don't know. This was not a bad Suspects game, and we're kind of getting into that part of the list where it's just nitpicking more or less. This is not one of the best. This is certainly far from the cream of the crop. But it's an improvement. Ingrid really sticks out like a sore thumb, but overall, characters had more to offer in this game. Alright guys, case number 21 on our suspects list, we have Tomb of the Lost Queen.
Okay. I still think this is an excellent game for a lot of reasons, but I'm not sure Suspects is one of them. I think that this game is emblematic of how I said when you get a real good egomaniac, crude, and almost belligerent suspect, like Abdullah Bakum, you instantly get a lot more entertainment in the game. And that's what I get out of the lead man, Abdullah Bakum.
He really domineered over every other suspect, Everyone's kind of afraid of him, more or less. I think Lily tries to, be a little macho, but,
No, Jamila is the one who stands up to him. Dylan doesn't even try.
Exactly.
At the end game.
Yeah.
Dylan was a great character while he was in the game. I thought he disappeared a little too early, and then he's a phone contact. But I guess we can just break down the story real quick. We're on an expedition site in Egypt of a tomb that we don't know who is the inhabitant of. It could be that's the mystery kind of. The leader on the expedition is Abdullah Bakum, otherwise known as Ramses II.
Yeah. Beneath Abdullah, he's got a lowly grad student named
Lily. I'm trying to.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She's Lily.
I don't know what her last name is. Yeah.
Lily.
Yeah. So you got Lily. She's the only other American on your team. You got Dylan, the Saul Goodman-esque British tour guide, who's just real suave and he's a smooth talker. And legally, he's not supposed to be on the site, but he wants to get his claim in there first so that he can start taking in tours. And then you've got Jamila, who has... I don't like her very much, even though she does have the best character arc, I guess.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Really, she's got connections to Sunny June, and this game is almost like a precursor to Shadow Medallion in a couple of ways, and it's vastly better. But yeah,
Jamila's in both games.
She is. The second game
Exactly.
is phone contact. But Jamila in this game her cover is that she's just kooky, and she's all about aliens and the Anunnaki.
She thinks aliens built the pyramids.
Yeah, that's all you need to know about her.
At the end game, her true colors show, and I thought that she undergoes a character transformation that everyone else was lacking in this game. Everyone else felt very one-dimensional, especially Lily and Dylan and Abdullah.
Abdullah, I like him. I really think he's a great character.
Here's my problem. He never changes. You know,
He doesn't have to.
people, well, like, yeah, he doesn't have to, but that makes him worse. Think of something like Gray Courtright, another grouch who's domineering, and he goes through an amazing change.
Okay,
Abdullah
but-
doesn't, he's very one-dimensional, whether you want to accept that or not.
For real though, because the thing that I love about Abdul the most is his dialogue. I would put him in my top 5 favorite characters ever for dialogue specifically, because he's got a whole lot to say always. Jamila always says he talks like there's always an audience listening. What kind of an audience would listen to such a crude man or something? But what I really like about him is his English is just broken just enough that gives him like a sense of awe to the way he speaks. Like, he's always trying to come up with all sorts of analogies to make sure Nancy understands him and stuff.
I hate when he degrades all of our translating work by saying it's beginner's luck.
Yeah.
I know, that was great.
Yeah, he's very self-absorbed. He has some really great monologues, though, especially just talking about Ramses II, and I love when he asks you questions like, there's a couple, like, what's the one about, are you
very brave or are you very stupid?
Yeah,
One of the first things he asks
Oh,
you
yeah.
at the beginning of the game.
That's the one, yeah. There's really cool conversation options with him.
Yeah, and you have like multiple different answers you can say to that. You can say, I'm very brave, I'm very stupid, or I don't know, or why do you ask?
Something I like about his character is just how big and loud and boisterous he is. Even if he's trying to be quiet, he's still like really loud. And then when Lily comes, he's like, "What are you doing?" You know.
Yeah.
And I just think I love that about him. I love that he's
Right.
so high up in his energy.
I was gonna say his off-screen temper tantrums are maybe my favorite part of the game because it's like
I love 'em.
It's like a sigh of relief too. It's like a checkpoint that you know you're making progress in the game because then that means you have like 5 different conversation topics with other characters. I don't know. I always consider that a breath of relief, actually.
Oh yeah.
Okay then, number 20, ranking 2 points higher than the last list, we have Trail of the Twister.
This one's a little interesting because we have some extremely boring characters, but then like the 1 or 2 characters that shine are amazing, especially in the end game.
Real quick, just a rundown of everybody. You've got Debbie, who's the very boring house team chasing manager. Frosty, the photographer who lives in the basement and is terrified of mice. You've got Chase, the muddy good old boy mechanic who's always out in the barn trying to fix up cars, getting wrecked by hailstorms. And then you've got Scott Varnell himself. He's the leader of the chase team, and you can just tell by his appearance that, you know, he's got some issues going on in his life.
He's a very accurate depiction of depression.
And then, finally, you've got good old Pa of Ma and Pa's General Store, the folksy old general store owner who could put Emily Griffin to shame.
What I really liked about Suspects is how a couple of them, Pa and Debbie primarily, are really involved in theater, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the setting and how there's not much going on in this town. There's not much to look forward to. So people are very invested in their local like theater, and this storm chasing team, it's pretty much everything to some of the suspects, especially Scott. What I picked up is that not a lot of these suspects have much going on in their life, so they're all invested into their duties, which was a cool takeaway.
I still stand that Scott Varnell is an excellent character because, in hindsight, parts of the ways that you can analyze him, how nothing really makes him enthusiastic besides when he's asking you, "Oh, that tornado you saw, how did it make you feel? What'd you think of it?" And despite everything else that happens as the game progresses, I think that he'll always be on the same tier as Pa to me. Does someone want to talk about Pa's tragic backstory that is only inferred and never actually clarified?
So Pa is a lovely, sweet old man who runs a general store, and he's had his fair share with tornadoes and twisters, and not in the best way possible. And again, it's Nancy asks throughout the game, you know, where's Ma, and just asks about her. But every time that comes up, he's always like, "Oh, she's around, and she'll be coming in and all that stuff."
That was really good.
Thank you. No, anyways, yeah. So it is implied, heavily implied, that his wife was killed by twisters, and the way that he talks about the twister as this dark, raging, rampaging monster that just goes tearing across the land, and there's nothing you can do about it, and then all of a sudden it ain't there no more. It's just this sad. It's really depressing, actually, how he talks about it. But the way he opens up, he's a beautiful character that really cares for the people that are around him, whether the people around him are fighting, like the two Storm Chaser teams, or if they're going to see a show at the Grange Theater.
Man, really, I think that Paul was great because he had the slightest bit of super valid motive that, again, is only implied and inferred. And really, Scott's depression begins 3-4 years ago when Ma was killed by the tornadoes.
Yeah.
Because he feels responsible because he didn't have the budget to cover the whole county in sirens and make sure that everyone was able to hear when the tornado siren was going off, and as a result, Ma was killed. And you know that Scott really holds that against himself, and that's really what depressed him into his career. Likewise, Pa also holds it against Scott, we can only assume.
That's some really good detective work the player has to do, because Nancy won't pick up on it. So when you look at the game through that lens, how Scott and Pa have this really interesting relationship that it could be hateful. Pa seems like a pretty forgiving guy, but who knows? It just becomes that much more interesting. And then, I mean, just to touch up on, like, Chase, for the sake of mentioning him, I really hated Chase. I didn't think he had a place in this game.
See, I don't think he had too much of a place either, but he's a guy that I would absolutely love to go hang out with all day. He's one of the most chilled out guys, and I love the way he speaks. And I live in a town where he would fit in like flawlessly, so I think he's just the kind of guy that I would love to hang out with.
Well, there's the barbecue factor.
I totally think that Chase could be invited to the barbecue. He could be the first person on this list that actually merits an invitation to the barbecue,
Absolutely.
Even if he doesn't add much to the story.
I would invite Hulk Sanchez to the barbecue.
Okay, Hulk Sanchez too, in hindsight. Overall, it's a game that's got 5 suspects. They're all decent characters, even if some of them aren't relevant to the story, which, is the big complaint. And at the end of the day, I think that talking to people in this game is quite pleasant.
Yeah, I guess that summarizes it pretty well. It's a very middle-of-the-road game. Some very, very high points, some pretty low points.
Number 19, case number 19, is the White Wolf of Icicle Creek. And this one, again, another one of my favorites, takes place in Canada. And it's the only one that takes place in Canada, so that's pretty cool. 5 suspects in this one. Technically 6 if you want to count Freddy, but she doesn't do anything except throw snowballs at you. So we've got Bill Kessler, Lou Talbot, that's what I'm trying to say, Guadalupe Camillo, Yanni Volkstaya, and Ollie Randall. Ollie's the... what would you call him? The handyman. Yeah, the foreman handyman of the lodge. Yanni Volkstaya is a...
Russian skiing Olympian.
That's the one.
Fredonia.
Yeah. Fredonia, that's where it is. Fredonian skier, and he's the best in the world and the best cross-country skier. Guadalupe Camillo is a nature lover, bird watcher who's there to watch birds, but since animals are her favorite thing, there's a bit of a fishing sequence there and a bit of a wolf sequence throughout the entire game. And then Bill and Lou are just like 2 old men that are just sitting there playing a board game.
Except one of them is just old in spirit and young in
Exactly, yeah.
My favorite part of this game is the relationship between Ollie Randall and Guadalupe, and it's a shame that Lupe could not stick around for a longer period of time, because things were just starting to get hot between the two. They do not get along well, and that's because of their beliefs. I think, to draw a comparison, Lupe is perhaps more liberal-minded, especially on her outlook towards nature. Ollie, on the other hand, he's the ranch hand. He'll take a couple shots at a wolf. He just sees them as pests and deer. And the two, that's the basis of why these people hate each other. And that was a really cool thing. One of my favorites about the game.
One thing that I loved about this game that kind of has to do with suspects is that it felt pretty full. Even if Lupe leaves halfway through the game, you've also got all the people you call on the phone, like Elsa Sybilhoth, the old maid, and the families that got sick there, the guy who slipped and, like, busted up his leg on the ice on the stairs. It feels like in this game there is no end to names and characters, even if not so many faces, to figure out everyone who stayed at this lodge and the problems that they encountered. And overall, I feel like everyone works together off screen really well. Plus, you have Bill Kessler and Lou Talbot.
Just what I was gonna say.
Yeah, in the same screen at the same time, always playing Fox and Geese, even though it's a terrible game. Hugh,
Awesome game.
Just keep your mouth shut.
Well, it's great because you can't have a conversation with just the one of them. They have such a great relationship. It feels like they're lifelong friends almost.
And then whenever Lou goes off to go snowshoeing, Bill just falls asleep on the table, and then you can talk to him isolated sometimes.
Yeah,
awesome.
Those were two great characters. And last thing, some great monologues by characters. The story that Ollie has about repeatedly missing the wolf because, unbeknownst to him, the sights on his gun were messed up by Guadalupe. I thought that was a really cool dialogue in the game. And I also really liked Yanni's story about how his grandma was mauled by wolves to death. That was really... That was something else, even if it was false. I don't know. Those were just two instances where I was captivated by the game. So... I just thought it was worth throwing in here.
For sure.
Okay, coming up at number 18. I wish this game was so much higher on the list, honestly, because it contains my favorite duo of any two characters, maybe in the whole franchise, but the other two characters are a little weak, and that's what dragged it down to the middle of the list. We have Game 24, The Captive Curse. So, just going to say right now, Carl the Burgermeister and Lucas Mittelmeyer, two absolute beasts, greatest rivalry in the franchise. It's like to rival Perry the Platypus and Heinz Doofenshmirtz, because, you know, Lucas is always one step ahead of Carl, and he's pranking him and leaving buckets of water over people's doors when they stay at the castle. And Carl, you know, he's actually got a job, he's always distracted, but he wants to get back at this kid so bad, and he can never pull it off.
If I remember correctly, both of them are on our top 15 suspects of all time list.
Yes, just because of the great dynamic they share.
But they're great, and it's a shame that the game's bogged down a little bit by Anya and Renata. More so by Anya, in my opinion.
Hugh, Julian, one of you guys want to cover Anya to the best of your ability? Because I like Anya.
But she's very buddy-buddy with Nancy, arguably the most buddy-buddy other than Joseph Hughes coming in final scene. We even talk about boyfriend struggles, which I thought was very interesting, and that's a pretty big part of the game, given that Anya had a history with Marcus Boehm, and there's some prime motivation there. But, she is just not that interesting, especially compared to...
Oh, speak for yourself. I like Anya.
Okay,
I think Anya's...
Make your case.
She's got great costume design. When I played this game, it felt genuine when she was trying to help Nancy with her Ned problems, because I was just kind of startled that the developers thought they needed to put Nancy and Ned drama in this game. But otherwise, I like her accent. I love how friendly she is. I think that in hindsight, she makes a very convincing, friendly suspect. You know, she reminds me of a much better acted and written Emily Griffin from Ghost Dogs and Moonlight.
See, that's one of the biggest gripes, actually, amongst the community with Anya, is her accent.
Really?
Because, and I can kind of attest to this. I've had multiple German exchange student friends at our school, and their accents are the real thing. And when I compare it to Anya's, it's a little bit tough to listen to her.
I really liked it's more in the end game. We have Renata's reveal about her and the legend, and that was really well done and something I totally didn't expect. And I love how it all starts with finding the elephant scarf down underneath the castle.
I think Renata, I've always said this, Renata is an outstanding character for dialogue. She has some of the greatest, creepiest one-liners of the entire franchise, and that should not be overlooked. Her profession is that she is a traveling storyteller who goes to places like Castle Finster and stays for a couple nights and tells stories to the people staying there. And it's, Nancy says to her at one point things like, oh man, there aren't very many traveling storytellers left. That must be really sad for you. And she goes, no, it is sad for you. I know the stories and you do not. I like all the suspects in this game. I think it's a great game for suspects, and I don't care if you guys don't agree. But I'll take number 18 for Captive Curse, because there's other games that are more deserving of higher positions.
Absolutely.
My last word is that it's a shame Lucas's dad was not a character.
Oh yeah, Franz Mittelmeier.
For having so many lines dedicated to him and his very important job in the castle, it's just a shame that they didn't render him as a character. I don't know why, but just food for thought.
So coming in at game number 17, we have Midnight in Salem.
Midnight in Salem. Okay, it's middle of this list. Smack dab. So Jamie, he's the one that likes it the most out of all of us. I don't think it's a bad Suspect game, but I think they definitely took quantity over quality.
Yes.
Make your case.
Okay, I think Midnight in Salem did an excellent job with off-screen character chemistry. Everyone knows each other, everyone talks about each other. There's a couple characters in this game who are admittedly just nauseating to talk to. Jason Danforth, Alicia Cole, and some people would say Judge Danforth too, but I like him.
I would.
I call him, I think he's like Jerry from Rick and Morty.
The Lake Winnipesaukee Regatta.
Yes, he's a funny old guy who you can tell he's just kind of doesn't care anymore about anything. He's just so chill.
What in Sam Heck is a Bitcoin?
Otherwise, though, the game really shines to me with Deirdre Shannon and her cousins Tegan and May Perry. Tegan's a bit more cheery and chipper in your face when she's, holding something out on you and lying to you, and then May is just stone cold. She's like if Jane Penvlin went through her angsty teen phase. So Olivia Ravencroft is almost entirely comedic relief as far as characters go. And I don't hate that. I think that it was cool to have a luxury that you had so many characters in the game that one of them can be entirely silly for the most part, if not a little suspicious at times. Lauren Holt, I love her just because of the Luminous Infusion soundtrack, but that being aside, I think she's a fun and compelling person to talk to. I've given my brief rundown of why I like these characters. I now concede you may rip them to shreds, so go ahead.
Well, I don't know what to say. There was just quantity over quality. A lot of people just
felt unnecessary.
Felt unnecessary. There were too many moving parts, and I know my first time playing through, because there were too many suspects, it took me till the end game to get all of their names down, No,
I was never at a point in this game where I was like, who is this person? Have I met you before?
Not that, it just name memorization took forever for me.
Not me. I feel like I snapped pretty well with these characters.
Well,
I think it only made sense to me because I was covering news for this game for about 2 years.
That's true.
I had all the characters' names down, no problem.
So, this point forward, there were a lot of hot takes in the list-making process, and there's going to be some arguing coming up still, I'll bet. But, for the most part, every game coming up was a pretty solid game for characters that, for the most part, everyone had something in them that they liked. For the most part.
Well, just a behind-the-scenes info, we were on a group chat for about 2.5 hours yesterday putting this list together. And most of that time was spent in this upper half.
Yes. It was crazy how many times we had to just argue with each other and some of the compromises we made. At the end of it, we asked to have Hugh on, so it's our fault. So.
Oh, good man.
At the end of the day, I mean, that's what he's here for, to put our biases in check.
I love this list, Jamie.
Okay. It's a fine list, Julian. It's a fine list.
I think it's a fair list. I'll put it that way.
Okay, so moving on to number 16, we got the fan favorite mystery adaptation book, Secret of Shadow Ranch.
Okay, everybody loves this game, I feel. It's one of the more unanimous liked games in the Nancy Drew community. And I definitely think a big contributor to that is the suspects and the egos that some of these suspects carry. And three of them are like cowboy folk, right? But each of them are distinctly different, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
And then Mariazi's kind of like off doing her own thing, running her own shop. She's kind of just out of the picture, though she does have ties to Tex. But I really liked how different they were able to make all of these similarly styled suspects.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now. I would ask Shorty Thurman for an invitation to his barbecue.
Where the game breathes in its suspect category is the cutscenes we get at the end of each night, and
Yes.
the cookouts that we get, and all the little mannerisms that players pick up on and how characters feel about one another. It was amazing, and very few Nancy Drew games have similar cutscenes like these.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, the reason that I don't like Mary Yazzie as much as the other characters is just because she's not in any of those
Yeah,
cutscenes. or
she's
anything.
just a little too far out of the picture.
You know, you're not in the ranch club. I'm sorry, you can apply to join, but we're quite happy as we
Apply
are.
to join.
But, man, to be real, I put Tex and Mary Yazzie on the same rung of me not liking either of them very much, which is cool, because they deserve each other, and they found each other, so that's nice.
Hugh, what do you have to say?
Dave Gregory. He's the Nancy Drew community heartthrob. Or at
Yeah,
least one of them.
honestly.
And I still don't know why, and I don't know if it's just because I'm a guy. I don't know. I just don't understand it. Mason Quinto's more my guy, but anyways, no. Dave Gregory is he is a very nice guy, and he's pretty to himself until he realizes that he likes Nancy. And
You
he
got
can open up to her.
a study back home?
His motive for finding Dirk Valentine's treasure is really, I think it's really sweet, and it shows his character as well.
Right.
And then Shorty's such a brilliant character because he's one of those get rich quick kind of guys who is just dying to make that kind of cash. And we find again, spoilers, we find his little gold map right beside him that really implies something there. And then Tex, he's just straight to the point, no nonsense, loves his job, or appears to love his job, and he does it well. And he's just a classic cowboy.
I really like how Tex's dismissive nature is compensated so well with how much Shorty likes to gossip.
Oh, yes.
That was really great. Shorty comes off as like a true friend at times, and I really liked that component. And then there's just like the odd sheep out, Mary Yazzie.
Yeah, Mary Yazzie is a Native American woman who runs a little gift shop where she polishes up nice stones and picture agates and pictographs and stuff for people to buy as souvenirs. She collects arrowheads and puts them on display and sells those. She has Nancy collect arrowheads for her. And this is a bit of a spoiler, so if you haven't played this game, you might want to skip ahead a couple of 10 seconds. She is actually in a romance with Tex, which is very much under the table, as Tex is always the big macho man who talks in the Batman voice. So, you know. It's interesting that they made the big, intimidating character of Tex turn out to have a soft spot like that. Again, very solid game. Honestly, I'm not sure. Yeah, Suspects is one of the reasons why I always come back to Shadow Ranch. Just because dishing with Shorty is just the best.
But this is only 16 on our list. There's a lot more greatness to come.
Okay, I'm gonna sit this one out. You boys take 15, because
Yeah,
I
fair enough.
personally do not agree.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Alright, we got Silent Spy for 15, and I think that Silent Spy is a masterpiece. I understand how it's not everyone's forte, and there are some weak points of the game. I don't like how Moira disappears for a lot of it, but I thought Suspects really drove the game home.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as of recently, this game has shot up to be one of my top games. It's I thought the characters, especially at the end, all really came together, and really just drove the story home. But as we progress with the game, Moira and Alec especially, I think, provide a lot of great narrative structure, and I thought they were so well written. And with Moira's ties to Nancy's past, and with Alec being his mysterious spy figure that he is, I love chatting with them. And then with Bridget and her little thing about halfway through the game, I think that was like another great reveal, especially with her character at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
And the whole scene with her and Nancy as they're about to be crushed, that's another good one as well. And then Ewan the man, he is the most monotone character in the whole game, probably in the whole series.
And that's a good thing?
Yeah, no, Hugh, that's where I disagree with you. I said I don't
No, sorry, monotone in the way that he talks. Let me rephrase that.
That's what I was referring to, though.
No, but hear me out. Like, I love the way that he doesn't get overexcited, and he doesn't get, too verbally worried. I love that. I love that he's like that, so that we have really no idea what he's like, what he's really thinking. It just adds to the mysteriousness of him, especially when we ask him, "Is Ewan your real name?" and he says, "No, of course it's not." And I'm like, oh.
Okay,
it's just awesome.
He was the most bland to me, in my opinion. I don't know.
And
it made for a really weird ending. But the Bridget into Zoe thing, that's one of my favorite parts of the game.
I liked Moira, and I liked parts of Zoe.
What about Alec?
No.
Really?
Parts of Zoe. Would you like her arm and her
I mean, just...
I don't know.
Alec had his moments, but everyone in this game, it was so silly to me that every person that you meet in Glasgow, three of the four gradually become like, I'm secretly an undercover spy, and I'm all wrapped up in this business. Like, if I go to Glasgow and the first guy I meet isn't secretly an MI6 agent or MI5, I'm going to lose it.
All in all, I think it's a very good Suspect game. It is not the greatest, though.
Okay, moving on. Time to make some people cough up their breakfast. We have Treasure in the Royal Tower. Okay.
What are you inferring by that? That they would?
Everyone loves this game.
Oh yeah. Well, we all love it too.
But I mean, it's got three really good suspects, and then one savvy photojournalist. So
one humble photojournalist.
Let's give a brief synopsis of who's who. First of all, we get Professor Hotchkiss in this game. She's this nutty old lady who...
Waverly class of 1881.
No.
Oh, yes.
She's great. She spends a lot of her time wrapped up in her room, but at the witching hour, at 3 a.m., she will come out and we can have conversations with her about her theories about Marie Antoinette and how they are tied back to the castle here, specifically one of the towers. She was great. She's a fan favorite, no doubt, and she adds so much charm to the game. Next, my personal favorite is Dexter Egan, and he is at first, very, what's the word? He's stubborn. He assigns us a ton of chores.
Classic grumpy old man.
Grumpy old man, sure. And we just uncover layer by layer of this man's past until we find a great appreciation for him, and we start to form a friendship, which I thought was really great. And then Jacques Brunet, one of my favorite backgrounds ever to a Suspect.
Disgraced Olympic skier who is trying to outlive his failed past, and he's come to the States to marry a girl, but really he's got an ulterior motive that has to do with his lineage. And
I think that's so original. It's so cool.
I don't want to get into it. It's not like endgame spoilers, but it is good midway spoilers.
And then we have the infamous savvy photojournalist,
Lisa Ostrom.
Oh.
Such stale dialogue. Such a... can we move on?
We move on?
We have to explain it. Why?
She's a stain on this game, man. I mean,
she doesn't do anything.
If you just removed her, if you didn't even replace her with someone, remove Lisa Ostrom, this game makes top 10.
I actually found this out myself. I played like the first hour and a half of the game without talking to her, and the only thing the only conversation you need to have from her is when she tips you off that Dexter went in to he was carrying some mysterious looking medallion out to the snow shed.
This weird green ornament? Yeah. She talks in the most generic 90s way imaginable. She's the epitome of everything that is boilerplate writing in the 90s.
But it was so funny to me because I played through the entire game, didn't talk to her once except for when my first conversation, she's like, "Hey Nancy, I saw Dexter carrying this strange green ornament out to the ski lodge." And then I was like, "Okay, bye Lisa." In conclusion, we got 3 great suspects, 1 stinker.
Scarlet hand inverse.
Oh.
Alright guys, number 13 on the list, we got Legend of the Crystal Skull. It's a great game, and almost every character, aside from Lamont, has something a lot deeper going on, which I appreciate. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, I really love Lamont. It's like I can't picture the game without Lamont.
I know, absolutely.
Lamont, to me, this is part of what I had to say about Midnight in Salem. when a game has so many characters as Midnight in Salem does, it gets the luxury to have a comic relief character. This game only had 4 characters, but it still went ahead and made one of them comic relief, being Lamont. And instantly, it just kind of damages the mystery, because at no point of the game do you really think that Lamont is Mr. Skeleton Man. Henry Bolet is the current executor of Bruno Bolet's estate, and he's this just angsty teen going through all these creditors and lawyers in his great-uncle's manor. And Renee Amon is the housekeeper and gardener who found Bruno Bolet dead. Then, on Bess's side of the game, you have Lamont, the eccentric and goofy curio shop owner, literally one of my favorite suspects of all time. I love Lamont. And then you've got Dr. Gilbert Buford, who was Bruno Bolet's best friend, even if Bruno Bolet wasn't his best friend, as he says. And he's an old, folksy, Cajun, Southern type man. I really like him. He's only got really 2 times in the game, really 1 if you condense it, where you have to talk to him. But he's got a lot of enlightening things to say.
I do really like talking to Dr. Buford, because I think that what he has to say, he's like this really wizened old man who knows everything, and he's just totally chilled out. He's not in a rush. He just does his thing, and I love that.
So Henry, actually, first of all, I like him much more than Renee, but Henry is one of my favorite suspects of all time.
Okay. Well, for one thing, if I'm being real with you, I love Renee, too. I thought, okay, this is something weird. This game, to me, I'm surprised it doesn't get much flack for this so often. It feels like there are 2 suspects. It's just Henry and Renee.
Yeah. Jamie brings up a good point. My first couple playthroughs, it only felt like there were 2 suspects, but it's not something that I hold against it for some reason. I think it's because Henry carries a lot. He just has so much going on, and I love his subplot with Summer. And then Renee is just, she's great to have around too. She offers a lot to the mystery.
Alright, moving on now. Hugh, do your thing, Hugh, because you're getting no mercy from me for this one.
I'll try to sympathize, but yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. I was sitting in American cinema history today, and I wasn't paying attention in class because I was writing up the reasons why this game's characters are really good.
Great.
Were you?
Great.
And so, yeah, the next game we're talking about is Danger by Design. I've got about half a page worth of notes here. I'm gonna just go down the list in what I think the characters are, or where they rank in popularity, in regards to who gets talked about the most. So Manette, I think, is number 1. She's the center of attention, and she really, to me, drives all the characters. Why does she wear the mask? What's going on there, right? We don't find that out until much later in the game. But I think it's such an interesting thing because that's what everybody talks about. That's what Heather talks about. That's what Jean-Mi talks about. That's what Dieter talks about. I can't remember if JJ mentions it or not, but it's such an interesting focal point for all the characters to be discussing. But that's not the only thing. I feel it's almost a way of her covering up her past as well as who she is right now. And when I say that, I mean her and Dieter had a relationship. And this is such an interesting side story because initially Dieter didn't want to date her because he loved her. He dated her because he wanted to get access to the windmill because his grandmother, Noisette Tornade, who just happens to be one of the focal points of the game as well, she owned the windmill, and Dieter was her grandson, and he wanted to get access to the windmill because of Manette, and he ended up falling in love with Manette in this relationship, which is so interesting because that brings up this whole fascinating relationship between Dieter and Manette and Heather, and then Manette employs Heather McKay, and she is trying to get her own fashion career starting, but she can't because she's working for Manette, but the job it's providing just enough for her that she sticks with it because there's nothing she can do quickly to get her career off the ground. And then Jean-Michel Traquenard, anyways, he is a member of the press, and he observes Manette's career with a different point of view from everyone else because he looks at her in regards to a journalist, the way a journalist would, and he takes notes on what she does, and he gossips about her, and it's such an interesting thing to compare Jean-Mi's perspective compared to Heather's. Heather works directly for Manette. Jean-Mi simply observes and records. And then JJ Ling is probably the character that doesn't she's the one that doesn't offer a whole lot to the story except a place for Nancy to stay. Does that persuade your opinion?
That was really well put. Yeah.
I mean, I have always liked Dieter and Heather to an extent.
I loved Dieter's historical ties to the mystery. I thought that was really great. And then I also loved the hidden motivations behind Heather. And maybe my favorite part of this game is the ability to turn on Heather or not and how it affects the end game.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so cool that you can really screw up her career or you can make it the best thing ever. That is awesome.
I don't think another Nancy Drew game has done something to that magnitude with a single suspect like that.
So I can like Dieter and Heather. Minette, I can take her or leave her, honestly. At times, I just don't like her because of how annoying she is and the puzzles she sends you on. I absolutely hate Jean-Michel and Gilles. I think that they are two of the most insufferable, annoying, pathological liars and egotistical and arrogant characters ever. And it's not the kind of egotistical and arrogant that's fun, like in other games, like Tino Balducci or Abdullah Bakoum. They are just insufferable at times, and it's...
I think this is just a case of agreeing to disagree. I'm more middle of the road between you two.
Okay, Aliok, this die is cast, this list is made, so... Number 12 goes to Danger by Design.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair placing. You made some amazing points on it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why we have them here, to make sure that Danger by Design is in the 30s every time.
With that, guys, we're moving on to case number 11 for Best Suspects. We got Alibi and Ashes, and for a very important reason. This is an extremely different Nancy Drew game in which we can play as multiple different characters. We're not just switching it up between the Hardy Boys and Nancy. We can play as Ned, Bess, George, and Nancy. And with that, we get different talking points and different suspects interact differently. I'm using the word different a lot. With whoever you're playing as. And I thought that was such a brilliant mechanic. I really loved how Alexei hates Bess and loves George. It's just little things like that make this game so amazing to me.
I mean, to me, that little piece of just mechanic is what made this game higher than a bunch of the others. Because characters in this game, some of them I just don't like. I could take them or leave them. Of course, I don't hate them as much as Danger by Design characters. But, like, with that being said, I love Alexei Markovic. And I really like Deirdre Shannon. I'm glad that she became a consistent character in the franchise. And it's too bad that she wasn't hyped up in earlier games. You know, because she totally could have. But Tony Scolari, I know you're supposed to hate her, but I hate her too much. And Brenda Carlton, she was a good character.
Brenda was a good character.
But scumbag.
And don't forget the Chief. I love Chief McGinnis.
Oh, Chief McGinnis, too.
Of course.
Yeah. We don't really... I mean, we have one real conversation with him, and then he's actually pretty relevant throughout the game because we have to eavesdrop on him, we watch video recordings of him. He still has a powerful presence in the game despite not having actual conversations. It's not like he's a suspect, but he's a character, and...
Well, it's up to him whether or not we stay in jail the entire time, you know?
So, Hugh, what do you like about the game?
Oh, I think the characters in this game are just so good. I really love Tony. I think she is... I think her motives that we don't easily see, that we have to go undercover as best to find out, I think those are really awesome. She really plays the part of the businesswoman that really is striving for new change, and I think that's awesome. And then Brenda Carlton I think she's a very smart character. She knows what she wants, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, but she knows what she wants, she knows how to get it, and she's not afraid to do it. She's a fearless character. But that's also a bit of her downfall, you know?
Alexei Markovic still always takes the cake for best character in this game, just because of how shocking it is that he used to be the magnificent Markovic and that he was the Nancy Drew of his time, and then he got ruined by...
Nancy's dad
working in tandem with... What was the guy's name? Who...
I can't remember.
Accused him of stealing?
Oh, yeah, it was like...
J something?
Yeah, it was initials. Yeah, I can't remember now.
I can't remember what it was. The best part about it was how it was revealed to us. It was in the perfect pacing, and it wasn't like right away, and it wasn't right at the end either. It was just enough that we kept wondering, who is this guy? And not too many people would talk about him unless he would give you the information himself, and I just thought he was such an awesome character, and how he opens up at the end as well was just, it was awesome. It was so awesome.
It was.
Yeah.
Tony Scolari is probably the weakest one to me, and I don't even hate her that much. This was just all around a really great suspect game, and the elements you get from playing as different people, different reactions. It's a very Alibi and Ash's Suspects is possibly the best part about it. Top 10.
Okay, we are now entering the top 10 on this list. Top 10 greatest games for characters and suspects. And number 10, I fought tooth and nail because I wanted this game in the top 10. I wanted it to
This
be
took you
recognized.
pretty much the entire 2.5 hours yesterday.
I wanted top 5 originally at
Yeah,
times.
that was ludicrous.
Okay.
Explain.
Game number 31, The Labyrinth of Lies. I hated this game for the longest time, and once I got in a good replay, I can honestly say this is one of the only games where Suspects is by far the best thing about it. Every character in this game, I understand why some people say Niobe Papadaki is lame or a bad character. Her whole identity is that she's anxious and has low confidence and is just weak in general, and really, by the end of the game, that's the key part of this. By the end of the game, everything changes. The game switched up the formula in ways that I can't get into without spoilers that really, really made a big difference to me. Xenia Dukas, I think that she is also an excellent character for the sole purpose of being a perfect control freak. You can see how helpless she feels when she's slipping under pressure and things aren't going her way. She gets frantic and starts screaming at people. And whenever you talk to her, she always tries to calm down about it. There's multiple times in the game where you encounter her just scolding other members of her crew. Then you've got Grigor Karakanos?
Yeah, definitely gets the barbecue invitation.
Oh yeah, Grigor is way up there. He's coming to my barbecue. He's such a cool guy. He has a really touching backstory and is probably, next to Niobe, the most sympathetic character in this game. And then, above all the others, most intimidating character in the franchise, you have Thanos, the actual murderer. Thanos Ganis. So, at a point in this game, you call Frank and Joe for background checks on all the characters that are in this play, and they actually come up with this dude Thanos Ganis is a murderer, and that he was a bodyguard for Kronos, the Greek mafia, and killed people under that job. And he got off, they appointed him a good lawyer, and now he's a free man. But he's literally killed people. And he doesn't shy away from the fact either.
What's his line?
He has some crazy lines in this game. He always hangs around in the Tartarus set of the underworld of Hades. And Nancy says, it's strange to me that you always spend so much time down here in the set. And he goes, it is not so strange for me to spend time down here in the underworld. When I come here one day, there will be men waiting for me.
That is so crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's terrifying.
There's parts of the game where I'm like, oh, it's sad that I don't get to talk to these characters more often, especially Thanos, and then I realize I do. You have like 20 things you can talk to him about, just as much as any other character. It's a little ways into the game until you actually get to meet him face to face, but rest assured, these characters, and again, there's only so much that I can sell them on before I get into spoilers, and I really don't want to spoil this game, because I know that there's a lot of people who haven't played it. Just, the game manipulates you so well.
So, I'm a little middle of the road. I'm leaning towards it's a good Suspect game, but Niobe and Xenia are a little too slow for me.
Oh, nice. Xenia's final form in the end of the game.
Yeah, once again, you're conflicting ending with Suspects.
No, I'm not. This is her character arc.
Okay. But, Grigor's backstory about the man Grigor who took him in for his theater job is amazing to me.
Grigor was an orphan who was caught stealing food off of a movie set by the producer, a man named Grigor, who needed more extras and didn't feel like sending a little boy to jail or an orphanage, so he said, tell you what, I'll let you eat, and I won't send you to the police if you are an extra in my production. And ever since then, Grigor got into the theater arts, and this man was his mentor, and when he died, he took his name. And he hopes that someday he can make it in the film world too, or in the theater world, and when he does, he will open a famous theater under this man's name to pay homage and honor him for the path he put him on.
That is so beautiful. Her Interactive did not need to put that amount of effort into this character, and they did, and it was amazing.
Well, I'm just glad that I was able to honor it with number 10 the way that I wanted it to be. because I sincerely think that this game is criminally underrated when it comes down to suspects. Coming in at number 9, we have maybe a bit of a surprise pick that some of you may have not expected, but I believe all three of us were in agreement that this game deserved top 10.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Hugh, I'll go ahead and let you take it, because this one is quite sentimental to you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is the very first game that I ever played, the one that got me into the Nancy Drew series. This is Stay Tuned for Danger. This, I actually realized it this morning, but it has one of the highest suspect/character counts in the series. And I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh yeah. But yes, we have Lillian Weiss, the director of Light of Our Love. Actually, I'll give you a quick premise. The show takes place in New York. Nancy is going to investigate death threats against a daytime TV star, Rick Arlen. And the daytime TV show is Light of Our Love, and Lillian Weiss is directing it. And she is a very, very tough character who has anger management issues, which gets revealed later in the game. She definitely softens up as the game goes on. And I thought she was a fantastic character to interact with. Millie Strathorn, Strathorn, I don't know what it is. Nonetheless, she's based off Mildred Wirt Benson, the original ghostwriter of the Nancy Drew series, and she runs the prop room. She's eccentric, she's got terrible riddles, I guess, that are too easy to solve. Well, nonetheless, she's a great character. Bill Pappas, he is a character that we never get to see, but we get to hear and interact with over the phone. We've had chats about this in the past, but he seems like a character that should have been there in physical form, that we can go into his office and have a chat with, because it just makes sense when you play the game that would be the case, but it's not. He's the producer of Light of Our Love, and I think he does a good job. The show has been going on for a long time. And then we have Rick Arlen. He is the one who we are investigating the death threats against, and he is such a Ken doll who just thinks nothing can ever hurt him, in the words of Maddie Jensen, his co-star. Mm-hmm. Rick Arlen is he's a playboy. That's perfect. Yeah. Dwayne Powers is his agent, and we get to visit him rarely, I guess. He lives he works in the same apartment building as Hess Grumbly, which is always fun. And then we have Maddie Jensen, who is the co-star of Light of Our Love, and we are rooming with her in Aunt Eloise's apartment.
You summed them all up amazingly.
I want to clarify real quick. We count Bill Pappas as a suspect because at the end of the game, you have the opportunity to accuse him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is a cool feature that this game had.
Don't forget Ralph the security guard.
Ah, yes.
Ralph Guardino, of course.
What a beast. Honestly, yeah, I think that it's just outstanding the way that they had all these characters, even if some of them are just complete crackheads with no actual substance to the story, like Millie Strathorn. I think that they're just hilarious. They add a whole lot to the game in terms of charm. This is definitely one of the funniest and most charismatic games, and it's kind of difficult to play these days. You have to follow a real specific tutorial from Her Interactive. But if you got $10 lying around and you're a fan of the franchise, I'd totally advise checking it out someday.
Alright guys, I was really looking forward to this. I think we are transitioning to some of the best characters right now.
Absolutely.
Coming in at number 8, we have Danger on Deception Island. It's Holt's Gatto. It's vote for Holt.
It is Holt's Gatto. So,
we have arrived.
The reason this game is so phenomenal is that Katie Firestone, the lady that you're staying with, who's supposed to be like your buddy, she's supposed to be in your corner the whole game, she eventually becomes non-exempt from suspicion. You really start to consider at points that maybe she's behind the strange happenings and that she ransacked her own boat to try to divert suspicion.
It's so great because in other games, Emily Crandall calling you out in the 1930s, she's obviously not the culprit. Maddie Jensen, obviously not the culprit. These are all people that are recruiting you onto the case, and it's just you can rule them out. What we have here with Katie is so amazing, and it was a great part of the game.
And then apart from that, the other thing that makes this game so good, and this, again, we touched on it briefly in Suspects, in the story mystery category, is that there is a actual, really convincing dilemma going on in Snake Horse Harbor about this orphaned killer whale that showed up in the harbor, and if we should take an environmental approach to it or an economic approach. Basically, Andy Jason and Katie Firestone both think that this whale should be cared for, and we should take measures to circumvent it and make sure that no harm comes to it. Meanwhile, Jenna Devlin and Holt Scotto believe that this whale is not important enough to come before the economy and the lives of people who live in Snake Horse Harbor, and it's time to, doing what makes sense and not what's politically correct, and vote for Holt.
Boom. That was perfect.
So Snake Horse Harbor is this really small, really reserved place. So everybody knows everybody's political beliefs, and people hold grudges based off that. And those grudges are what fuel the game. Suspects off screen, I mean, it's amazing what goes on. In the conversations, it's always gossiping about, oh, did you hear Katie Firestone's still allowed to take people out to see the orca? That's a total breach of...
The violence. Yeah, it's like, oh, her business is booming from that, and she can't care less about all these fisher folk.
From all of that, it's just like morality questions arise, which is something I did not expect to get out of an Nancy Drew game, and it really made me turn on Katie for a lot of the game. I mean, I was not anticipating doing that, but...
I made her at least 3 poisoned sandwiches before I finally advanced.
Oh, you're getting the jelly and sardines classic.
Oh, awesome.
No, but it's just amazing because everybody shares these political investments in the town, and their differing opinions are what makes them so unique and so spiteful, and it just adds so many elements to the game that no other case can tap into. I think we summarized it well.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed that one.
Moving on now. Number 7 on our list. The Ghost of Thornton Hall. So this game is consistently revered as one of the greatest games in the whole franchise. And regardless of whether or not that's true, it's certainly a fan favorite, certainly got a super solid story, and for the most part, really good suspects. I think we can all agree Colton kind of sucks, just as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, Colton is...
But his backstory is good. I'll give him that.
Okay, yeah, Colton has a cool backstory, but he's not very much fun to talk to. He's kind of just a prep school douche. But at the end of the day, every other character in this game, Jesselyn's mother, Clara Thornton, her uncle, Wade Thornton, and the surprise character who wasn't supposed to be there, Harper Thornton. They are excellent characters. Harper especially is one of my favorite suspects of all time, and I think the community can attest to that as well.
So Harper actually came in as her second best suspect of all time, and Jamie was a big influence on that. I know he loves her as a character.
Yeah, so Harper is a complete screwball twist of a suspect. Nobody knows that she's on the island. She's not supposed to be there. She's supposed to be dangerous, mentally deranged, and emotionally scarred since the night the fire took her sister. Mm-hmm. And really, you have the choice multiple times to rat out on her and say, hey, there's a crazy woman in the basement, and everyone runs down there, and she's gone in a flash. And she comes back again and again, and keeps on just causing all sorts of trouble in the game. But really, you start to wonder just why is she crazy, and does she maybe know things that no one else does?
Yeah, no, I thought Harper was just a very well structured, and then throughout the in-game time, she's just a very well layered character who she, like you said, she does know things that the family doesn't know about. She's delved into the history, and although she may not look it, she's very smart.
Alright, you guys will move on to number 6 then?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Alright, if you want to have a little bit of Snake Horse Harbor with a classic twist, we've got the little small town of Skipbroth from Sea of Darkness. So, this game is also a little coastal fishing town. Whole economy runs on fish. It's Iceland. And you've got some nice, fun, juicy politics in this game, local politics. And that is, of the 4 characters, Elizabeth, Gunnar, and Dagny, who's kind of like the new outsider, and then Soren. Everybody hates Soren. Soren is the outsider who was born 10 miles away from this little xenophobic village in Iceland. And since he moved there in middle school, he's always been picked on and called the outsider, and it's really starting to hurt him. And so this dude, he keeps spirits bright when best he can, but everyone is just so needlessly mean to him. You really start to feel for him as you play the game, but you also have a good chuckle here and there at Gunnar throwing bottles at him. So
My side note is that everyone is gorgeous in this game.
Well,
Oh, dude, the animation in Sea of Darkness
peak animation,
is
yeah,
phenomenal.
It's so good. Oh my gosh, it's like a moving painting.
Elizabeth is always going through, a bit of emotions throughout this game. Her boyfriend, Magnus, is the one who disappeared, and she's always very antsy. She thinks that Magnus left because of her. She feels like it's her fault. Maybe he's in danger. Maybe he's dead. And Gunnar is more or less comic relief. He's just the old, washed-up fisherman oaf who... He's like ethnic Holt sometimes.
Yeah.
They say that he had a bad accident so many years ago and doesn't go out in the water anymore. And really, it's a very sad and touching story. Why that I don't really want to get into for spoilers. It doesn't have to do much with the actual end game, but it's just such a cool character development that I'd hate to give away to people who don't know it. And then I think you gotta hand it up to Dagny Silva for being the best wild card character in maybe the whole franchise.
Oh, she's so good.
Definitely. I was gonna say each character goes through their own transformation, and in the end game, they're all different than how it was at the beginning. I think that it was a real testament as to her interactive's ability to pull off like good character writing, and this was just an ultimate flex in this game. Everything came together so well, and it was so logical, and I just had a blast playing it. Actually, my first playthrough was just a few months ago, and I was like, geez, where's this game been all my life?
The writer of Sea of Darkness was only at Her Interactive for about 9 months, and then I think she left. But I'm just dying to know what her script of Midnight in Salem was, because I love Sea of Darkness. I think it's a great game, and I love the story. And if Midnight in Salem is a reflection of that, then I think the old Midnight in Salem would have been an absolutely phenomenal game. If anything, one of the best they've ever made.
We ready for top 5, guys?
Oh, 100%.
I just wanted to say, in this top 5, these are the games I do consider the cream of the crop for Suspects. The places are nearly interchangeable, although interestingly enough, we did all unanimously agree on number 1, so look forward to that. But to start things off with a bang in this top 5, ladies and gentlemen, we have the final scene.
So this is the only game on this list that made it into the top 5, that it's from the original generation. Stay Tuned for Danger just narrowly joined it in top 10, but top 5 alone, this one's exclusively in there.
That is an interesting stat, yeah.
This game has a special place in my heart. This is the very first game that I ever beat, which was...
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
that was Ghost Dogs for us.
Oh, nice. Yeah, 2007 or 2008, I think, was the year that I beat the game. And so I've known these characters for ever. But anyways, we've got 4 characters in this game. We've got Simone Mueller, who is the very
unethical Hollywood agent.
Unethical. That's a perfect, unethical talent agent for Brady Armstrong. And Brady Armstrong is the wannabe actor who really gets pushed around a lot by Simone, which is really unfortunate, because I think his character again is really good, because it's a bit of a reflection of what Simone wants him to be, but you can get glimpses every once in a while that it's not who he wants to be at all. And there is one clear giveaway of that at some point in the game when you go snooping through his things. Joseph Hughes is the sweet old caretaker who also has a very interesting backstory, and that gets discovered later on in the game as well. And then Nick Falcone is he's like the what? Did you guys ever see Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yes.
A long time ago.
Yeah, he's like the Commando of the theater revolutionists. I don't know. He's just got this. He's so passionate about saving these old theaters, and you can tell just by
humans against the destruction of an illustrious theater.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's perfect, and he's just got his laptop out in his van that he's got to go to every once in a while. But he genuinely loves the theater, and it's not just because it's an old theater, but he's got connections to this theater, and it really means a lot to him just for his own relative's sake that this theater does not get knocked down.
Nicholas Falcone and we missed it, Holt Scotto, those two both get invitations to the
absolutely.
What I think is very misunderstood about this game's characters is that Simone was portrayed perfectly. You are not supposed to like Simone Mueller. She did an amazing job, and especially the whole thing she pulls off with the wreath, that just like perfectly depicted what her intentions are for all this.
Oh yeah.
And it's a big part going through her phone And the whole thing about finding Maya's ID card on the ground and how that was totally staged and Brady's obvious disgust in the whole thing, like, she's really the puppet master and Brady's just the puppet along for the ride. He has no say in his own life. He's like, it's as if he signed his own life away. And
I don't see no gun to your head, it's just a wad of cash in front of your nose.
Oh, love that line. Love it.
This game, okay, it should also be attributed this game for Suspects. This is peak sassy Nancy. Nancy is never sassier than in this game.
I think your phone's about to ring.
And she's always on the offensive, and that really, really rattles a lot of the characters' dialogue. Because at the end of the day in this game, no two characters are on the same side. You know, sometimes Simone thinks that Brady's on her side, but Brady is not a fan of Simone. No one is in each other's corner. It is a free-for-all, and it makes for excellent character writing.
Alright, with that, guys, I think we're ready for case number 4, Best Suspects of All Time.
We have Shadow at the Water's Edge.
It's the game that keeps on giving, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
I am so excited about this one. Go on.
I think that you agreed. I just want to get this out of the way. Miwako is the weakest character in this game, just because she's so stressed out to have much of a personality. We gotta bring this up. Hugh absolutely handed it to us. It is the Shimizu family. And I have no idea why they wouldn't just go with Shizumi.
It's like
because Yumi Shizumi, Kazumi Shizumi, but it's Shimizu. I can't even say
it's like the
Kasumi Shimizu.
It's like the Berenstein Bears.
Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
Okay, getting that out of the way now.
Hugh, did you want to talk about how the interworkings of this family work?
Yeah, well, when you finish this game and then you sort of back out and look at it in the grand scheme of things, this is such a well-written game. All the characters they work so well together, and I think when we talked about this yesterday, I still stand by this. I don't think this game would work if any one of these characters was gone. They all mesh together. They all have great side stories, and they all work with each other. Yumi and Rentaro, they obviously love hanging out in the city together. Rentaro and Miwako are dating. Takai is Yumi and Miwako's grandmother. And at the base of it, they lost their mother, and it's just destroyed the family. Yumi does not want to go to the ryokan. She does not like talking to her grandmother because whenever she comes over, Takai and Miwako always gang up on her. Rentaro just wants Miwako to leave the ryokan because he knows how much sadness is there for her. Takai she wants the girls to stay at the ryokan out of tradition. And then Miwako simply just is too stressed out to even have to worry about anything else outside of the ryokan.
So this game is interesting because none of these suspects are like people I would invite to the barbecue. But that's not what this game's about. It's about the story that's told through their lives.
I'd actually probably invite Yumi because of her bento skills. That's about it.
Okay, you know what? That's solid. I don't think I would call a single character in this game one of my all-time favorites. It is entirely about how they all work together.
Everyone just feels so real and lifelike.
Alright, coming in at number 3, we have Warnings at Waverly Academy, the game that also clinched number 3 for the story and mystery list. This game gets the award for having the most suspects while juggling them all and making every single one feels just as important as the next.
Well, and they're all so diverse. Everyone's got this different ego, or they're this certain stereotype, you know? That's what every girl in here is. It's a stereotype. And they're portrayed so well, and I love how the girls work and hate against each other.
I'm just gonna say it right now because it's a harsh reality to face. Mel is totally invited to the barbecue, but there's no way she's coming. She's too cool. She would just ghost me.
So, where to start? I think we agreed Corinne is the weak part, and we're stuck living with her.
Corinne is the roommate. She's antisocial and super awkward, and everyone hates her because she's cringe. Then you've got her next-door neighbor, Mel, the resident goth girl, who couldn't care less about whether or not she's going to be valedictorian, but as she says, couldn't help but wanting to spoil it for everyone else by running. Then you've got Rachel Hubbard, the super intense student who is always drowning under a pile of homework and asking Nancy to do some grunt work for her so that she can actually manage to get through this semester. She's got a dirty little secret or two that makes her some great character arcs.
Leela Yadav is the school jock. She's
The sporty one.
Yeah, soccer, basketball. I think I'm forgetting one other. But,
Dude,
Holt
Hulk Sanchez and Leela Yadav.
Oh my god, can you imagine that couple?
Okay, now she has to come to the barbecue too. We'll set them up.
She's a great character, and you can tell that the school really gets behind her too, because almost every other girl, they reference how like Leela's carrying the team and they're proud of her in some way or another. But it makes for a really interesting combo because of her roommate Izzy, who stole her boyfriend.
Izzy Romero is just an absolute snake. She is a pit viper. And this girl, I think, really just adds to the complete clique drama insanity of the high school vibes in this game. Izzy Romero is such just a two-faced snake of a character that is fascinating to talk to, but at the same time, you're worried that she's gonna, like, leak info on your past.
Oh, she feels very powerful. All these girls bunched up in this very small environment, it makes for the life to be so interesting, especially on the virtual side. Texting and the gossip. I mean, that goes hand in hand with the suspects, you know? They're all 17, 18-year-old girls. They're all cooped up here, and they're obviously gonna hold grudges against each other. It was just really well told.
As Nancy says in the case file, this could be my scariest case yet.
Number 2, ladies and gentlemen, for the best suspects of all time, we have Deadly Device. One of my all-time favorite games, and I know Hugh feels the same way.
Oh, I love this game so much.
You guys go off. I'll wait for number 1.
Okay, so this game has the most fun conversations out of any game. I can't complete this game until I know I've gotten every conversation topic out of the way, because it's just an absolute charm to me to hear what everyone has to say. I love every suspect. Ellie is probably the weakest link, but still she offers so much, and everyone feels so real and so broken in some of the cases. And I love straight from the premise, guys, I love that it's pinned on Ryan. It was an interesting way to start a Nancy Drew game, and it was an amazing way to form a relationship and what turned into a friendship with one of the suspects.
I think this game's characters are just phenomenal. Mason Quinto is... I want to make a pun with his last name. Mason Quinto is the quintessential character. Sorry, I don't even know if I can even form that into anything. But I just thought it was funny.
That was good.
I'm gonna cry.
Anyways, Mason. No, he's a really. I think what I like the most about him is that he's like me. He needs things to be a certain way, otherwise they just drive me crazy. It's that OCD sense, I guess. But he's a very smart person, and he's very quick to get an answer. But he knows what he wants. He dislikes almost everybody in the lab. Gray Courtright is one of the most interesting characters in this game, because he doesn't say much. He just simply says, I don't know, or yes, or no. You know, it's just very straight to the point, and that covers up so much about him. As we progress through the game, we learn more, as you know you do in a Nancy Drew game. But he's just a very, very well-rounded character for sure.
Ryan is a huge fan favorite.
Ryan Kilpatrick. Oh, too quirky.
She's a biker girl. No,
that's my great. Sweet ride.
Oh, but it's not done yet. Don't ride it and you'll die.
She's great. And you know, one of my favorite parts of this game is when we're doing that like hacking security stuff with Ryan, and she's right next to us in Gray's booth.
Yeah.
And then the code pops up, right?
Make no mistake, one of the cool things about Ryan in this game, right off the start of the case, you are there to put Ryan away. They're setting it up like she's Manette from Danger by Design. Because Victor Lassette, the owner who's put you on this case, and the police, they're all saying, start with Ryan. She's the one who built the machine that killed Niko Jovic. It's all about trying to put away Ryan until you find evidence at a point that pretty much all but exonerates her from the charges.
And then once you find that out, there's still a good chunk of the game left, and she's the one person that you can confide in, which is so interesting to me.
Then, exactly.
Right when there's like a little bit of a lull in the game, what do we get? We get another suspect thrown in. Victor Lassette becomes a fully rendered model in his own office, and it's great to have conversations with him. He just made so much of the game. I've always thought Mason was like Dwight Schrute from The Office. I have always seen that connection.
That's awesome.
Okay, this is, I got one more thing to say about this game, and it's the reason why I revere it so much for Suspects in spite of everything else, is that there is a very clever theme with just about every character in this game that really just sells it to me. And that is how every single one of them is just differently abled, so to speak, in the head. And you can see examples of it everywhere. Ryan Kilpatrick is most definitely an ADHD brain, like myself. She can never sit still, she's always digressing, she's making charts to show how she's so upset with Nancy that Nancy keeps on having her play the speaker for Victor, and then gives up halfway through because she realizes charts are incredibly boring to make. You've got Mason Quinto, who, he said it himself, such an OCD man. When you snoop around his desk, if you so much as move a paperclip, next time he talks to you, he goes, "Someone move my things. Someone will pay."
And then he smiles. It's amazing.
I know. Gray Courtwright, in and of himself, is totally, like, I guess you could call textbook depression. He's got a lot of stuff bugging him, but really, when it comes down to it, he's just dissociated, and he's antisocial, and you can tell he's got so many regrets in his past. Ellie York, you could argue for insomnia, I'd say, at times, but again, she kind of breaks the trend. But to me, the one that's almost brilliant that I never noticed for the longest time until a comment pointed it out, so many people think Niko Jovic had autism, and that explains his brilliance and his difficulty in socializing with the other employees.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That is a fantastic theory.
It's such a subtle trend, and I don't mean to be like stereotyping or categorizing people or reducing them to just their, mental diagnoses, but it's something so crazy that you recognize this little old research lab way up in the Colorado Rockies is just a magnet for people of all sorts of orientations in the head.
That's fantastic. I've never thought about that.
Mm-hmm. It's a 10 out of 10 game every way you look at it.
But despite all the fantastic character arcs, and the twists and turns and heartbreaks of Deadly Device, there is one game that we all decided takes number one, simply for being so damn fun.
Oh yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite Nancy Drew game, Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. This game excites me all the time. I think about it, I just think it's just the quintessential game, and characters are definitely one of, if not the strongest points of the game. And you see that right in the opening cutscene where Laurie Gerard, the hostess of this wild adventure to go find Jake Hurley's long-lost treasure, when she introduces everybody on the train, you realize that we're not just on a train with some people. These people they've got egocentric, or egos like no other. Charlena Purcell is a writer,
reserved gossip queen.
Exactly. Yeah, she is a romance novelist that we first met back in Shadow Ranch, and she's back in physical form with awful clothes, but she's ready to help you out with Jake Hurley and his wife Camille. Tino Balducci, probably the I'm sure some people would call him Tino Balducci, but anyways, he is one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character. In the whole series.
You love him or you hate him. I know a lot of people who hate Tino, honestly.
Oh, I know, yeah. And I don't know why. I think he's just this stupid, funny character. And he's even stupider in White Wolf. But in this game, you can just tell that he is continually formulating in his mind how he can be the best, but try and make others feel like they're worth it. And I think that...
He's like an incompetent Abdullah Bakum. Okay,
yeah.
I want to touch on this really quickly. Tino's whole backstory is that he is a police detective who was kind of picking up this case about these two bank robbers, and he went out to go get some fast food chicken and rear-ended the car in front of him in the drive-thru. And it was the car of the two bank robbers, and they both came out and had nothing but a plastic chicken knife to defend themselves, and he just pulls his gun, makes the arrest, headline news across the country. Now, he's an idiot, make no mistake, who is convinced himself that he's some hero, and he's way in over his head. The whole world knows his name. He's so famous, and it's too famous for his own good, and it just gets him wrapped up in all sorts of shenanigans throughout the whole game.
Okay, I have something to say now, and I've never talked about this before, but I think the opening cutscene is a masterpiece because without Nancy saying anything, everybody's facial expressions give everything away about what they think and what their identity is. We have, as Laurie Gerard is going on about the ghost of Camille, and Jake Hurley, the train owner, she talks about the ghost, and then John Gray sits all back very intrigued. He's like, go on, I'm listening now. Tino Balducci, he's raising his eyebrows, and he's looking around at everybody like, yeah, I'm testing out the scene here. And he's like...
Charlene is just interested on finishing her book.
No, well, Charlena looks up once like, this is all BS, you don't know what you're talking about, and that's so her character. The Hardy Boys are kind of like holding back laughs as Laurie's mispronouncing Nancy's name. The whole thing is just so well portrayed of everybody's greater characters in the opening cutscene.
Now, a lot of people give John Gray flack, I know Julian has before, for being the boring character in this game. I think he's perfect because he's such a neutral and lighthearted character that everyone is casting aspersions this way, especially Tino Balducci. And the emergency brake gets pulled, and Tino's just like, oh, but it was Mr. John Gray, the ghost hunter there, and he's just like, only reason
I like to get all my ducks in the line before I make an arrest.
Only reason I'd ever talk to him is to arrest him for fraud. And John Gray's like, why would I ever pull the emergency? Why do you think I had some unstoppable urge to pull the emergency brake, Tino?
He's like Toby.
I guess we gotta count Fatima as a character, because she's got dialogue and a character model. But before that, I just want to say, Bess and George in this game are fantastic. I love all their banter.
Oh, my word.
Oh, yeah.
I love Bess and George in this game.
If for Suspects is one thing, I could call this the best game for dialogue in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's so well done. Absolutely.
You know, I think Hugh said it best yesterday. For the setting of a train mystery, these people make the game. Like, I can't imagine one character without it, and their presence adds so much to the mystery. They just fuel it entirely.
It's so good. I know, because having all these guys stuck on this train, they don't know where they're going, but they know they're on a train.
They're all so diverse.
Yeah.
And the initial mystery of what happened to Jake Hurley leads to what happened to Laurie, and then Tino Balducci thinks it's a good idea to go find the treasure, so he brings everyone with him, which leads to nothing. I just think that everyone's characters, they clash so hard because that's the idea, but they also work so well together.
Really, at the end of the day, the biggest complaint I have ever been able to make about Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon is that it feels too short. And I have always been able to just write that off as that means that I was having so much fun that it went by too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. I couldn't agree more.
A+ game.
A+.
So awesome.
Well, thank you so much for sitting through this video, everybody. I don't think we realized going into this one just how much longer a Suspects countdown would be than a story or mystery or any other premise. So, yeah, thanks for making it to the end. I'm sure we're going to do everything in our power to chop this down so that it's not 2 hours and 55 minutes.
Yeah.
But regardless, we're so glad that we were able to have Hugh Miller back on. He always brings some great insights. Nancy Drew, fine sommelier. Hugh Miller.
There we go. Yeah, no, I'm so glad to be here. I always enjoy chatting Nancy Drew.
His links to his channel is going to be in the description. He just posted an amazing video on a real-life Scopa card set. I highly suggest everybody go check it out.
Wow. Likewise, we've also got links in the description for the official Vote for Holt Discord server. It's just a real laid-back hangout right now to share Nancy Drew memes, discussions, content, and fan art, other sorts of media. And likewise, we have the links for Kaylee, my girlfriend, and our new artist's Tumblr and Instagram, where she just posts some art and doodles. She's doing the graphics and thumbnails for this series, so go ahead and give her some love if you got the time and the apps installed. Otherwise, I've been your host, Jameson.
And I'm Julian.
And this is Hugh.
Hi, I'm Hugh. Hello.
And we're glad you checked out the video. Thanks for sticking around, everybody, and don't forget to vote for Holt.
Vote for Holt.
Vote for Holt.